Well, good morning, Jen. It's so nice to meet with you. I have here today with me Jen Dunlap, who is the owner of Bright Families, where she focuses on family education. Jen, I just want to get started by if you could tell us really briefly what Bright Families is in a nutshell and how you got started on this path.
Yes, it's a family education platform that I made because I saw there was a need for teenagers to learn about a lot of the health things that adults typically learn as they're trying to improve their health. And I just felt that health education for teenagers was not very interesting. It wasn't very detailed. We give them very generic, very dated information.
Yeah.
And I thought there would be a place to give them more current information and more interesting details and take more time to go into depth instead of these kind of very generic courses that they're typically given, like don't do drugs and you should eat vegetables, right? So and particularly for girls,
Yeah.
I was talking to so many adult women about cycle stuff, and they said, if I'd only known this when I was 12. And I thought, why didn't we teach all the
Yeah.
girls when they were 12?
Yeah.
And since I had a lot of experience teaching high schoolers already, ever since I graduated from, even when I was in college, so it's been, over 20 years now, I was really comfortable getting up in front of a group of that age
Yeah.
and knowing what would resonate with them.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so important too. And I think so many people can be really intimidated by that age group, but it's so true. Like if you have that familiarity, that is a gift. And so playing to that is so important. That's beautiful. So what was it like your journey, your time with your own children, or was it just hearing this again and again and feeling that conviction on your heart that really
Yeah, partly both. I mean, I had a great experience in high school. That's probably part of why I enjoy teaching high schoolers so much. And
yeah,
schoolers, I was really blessed to have good teachers. And then when I had my own girls, I have mostly brothers. So it
yeah,
was a little bit of new territory for me to
yeah,
learn all the emotional ups and downs. But then I was always talking with my mom friends, and they said, could you teach my daughters this stuff? I said, sure. So
yeah.
eventually, when my oldest was about 12, was when I gave the first official teen course. I'd already been talking to my mom friends all the time. I would get
Yeah.
calls every week from people saying, hey, how do I do NFP? What do I
Yeah,
do for my irregular cycles?
for
Which
sure.
probably was what you were doing
Yeah,
5 or 10 years ago, too.
yeah.
Um, so then, first, I did it in front of the live group of high schoolers, because then you can really see it's like live theater, right? Um, and then after a few rounds of that, I felt comfortable taking it to online, where
Yeah.
I was already in the habit of teaching, but I just wanted that first live experience to really nail down the pace and where I needed to go into more depth and kind of how the conversation would go with a bigger
Yeah.
group. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Definitely. That's amazing. Well, and I do think that there's so much to what's going on in our culture today. The way that we can help our kids to understand how they were made is to do exactly that, right? To learn more about their bodies and
Right.
even just through nutrition, the way that our body can heal itself. I think there's so much depth to that. And that's really the cry, I think, of a lot of our hearts when we get to adulthood and say, why didn't I know this earlier? Because we see the heartache that it would have a
Oh,
lot of times saved us.
and I know you do help people who are having fertility. So, so often I'm talking to an adult woman who was told just outrageous things.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
eat meat, don't eat carbs, try
Yeah.
to stay thin. And then she's having the consequences 5 or 10 or 20 years later. And so it really made me think about, what do I want to tell my daughters?
Yes.
I could see
For
all the problems that these women were having, but my mom had given me pretty sensible advice, and it had really
sure.
helped me to have a better experience having my own children and being, healthy and fertile and being able to nurse them and all of that. So,
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, it's so true. I actually just had a mother-daughter that I was meeting with separately for nutritional therapy, and the mom had in her teens, she had, been raised in fat phobia, like don't eat fats, you're going to get
yeah,
fat. And
totally.
now she's gone through menopause. She's in her late 50s, and she has been struggling with all of these different health issues. And that's not the entire, base of her problems. But for
Right.
years, she's never eaten red meat. She's never eaten anything that had like high amounts of fat in it at all. Always eating low fat everything. And then the daughter was struggling with some issues too. And you could see how this place of fear of our body and the way, especially when there's that misunderstanding too, it just gets
Mhm.
passed on to that next generation if we're not very intentional about nipping that in the bud, or doing something like enrolling in your classes and learning together. How can we, even if it's, and I know this as a homeschooling mama too. Like sometimes we have our kids learn these things and then they teach us, right?
Yes. Yeah. Many of the moms say the girls come and say, "Hey, do you know what I learned in health class?" And sometimes it's something the mom already knew, but maybe she even met the girl, but it didn't stick. And
Yeah.
sometimes she's like, "Oh, hadn't heard that. Cool." But yeah, sometimes the moms are coming because they say, "I've told my daughter things, or I've started to have the conversation, and she clearly does not want to have any of these conversations with me. She just wants her own space." But
Yeah.
sometimes the moms say, "I grew up with such a weird attitude about food or exercise or weight." They say, "I don't even know if I could have this conversation in a way that wouldn't pass some of my baggage on to my daughter." So they said they almost just want to kind of farm it out for that reason.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Gosh, yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, 100%. So tell me about some of your different classes, like what you currently offer.
Yeah, so I've got a younger girls health class, which is like 10 to 13 or 14 year olds,
Great.
and then the high school class, so it's like 14 and up.
Yeah.
And obviously, the younger girls' health class is less detailed on everything. It's 8 1-hour classes in the
Okay.
series.
Yeah.
The high school set is 10 hour-and-a-half classes because we go into a lot more in
No,
depth on everything.
awesome.
And there's certain topics that are more appropriate for high schoolers to talk about. They aren't really on the table for middle schoolers.
Yeah.
So, for instance, when we're talking about mindset with the girls at different ages, for
Yeah.
the middle schoolers, we're focusing on how do you manage your mind? What do you do to get yourself out of a bad mood? How can
Mm.
you reset your mood? How can you get yourself focused for school? All
Yeah.
those kind of practical things. We talk about gratitude and empathy. And then with
Mm.
high schoolers, we take it a couple steps further and say, do you feel like you have ADHD? Do you have a really hard time focusing? Because by the time they're 15, they
Yeah.
have a sense of whether it's actually harder for them than for other people. And
Sure.
their hormones
Yeah.
should have settled down a little bit. Their growth should
Yeah.
have settled down compared with being 12, right?
Right.
Um, and then we also talk about that tendency with to impulsivity and addiction and dopamine. And we talk more about the
Mm.
brain chemistry of it with the older girls.
Mm.
Give a sense of kind of what the different levels of depth is. And then when we talk about something like cycles, with the younger girls, we give a general overview. Here's ovulation. It's normal to see mucus. Here's how long your period should be. It shouldn't be super heavy, kind of that general.
Yeah.
And here's what you can do for PMS and cramps. And then again, for the high schoolers, we take it a couple steps further and say, this is what endometriosis might present at, like
Beautiful.
PCOS might present. And I tell the girls, hopefully this isn't you, but
Yeah.
maybe your college roommate or a high school friend is going to have some of these symptoms, and you'll be able to say, hey, I think I remember something. I think this is what you should look up.
Yeah, for
So that
sure.
they can be that resource for their friends,
Yeah.
because often people just struggle with these things alone for a long time. I'm sure you get many clients like that where they felt embarrassed to even ask. They didn't even know what to Google.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of wander alone when the solutions would be out there. And it can take just another person to say, hey, I think you just need to get this information and you can take care of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, for sure. That's beautiful. So there, it sounds like there's a lot of community built in with the girls then too, to really kind of
Yeah.
to have discussions and hash these things. That's beautiful, Jen. I love that. And then
Yeah.
what about the boys' classes?
Oh, yeah. So the boys' classes are a little faster and more kind of
Yeah.
goal oriented because that, again, from trying it out with boys, that seems to be that appeals to them more. So it's just, I call it a workshop. It's a 4-class series, and we do nutrition, hydration, exercise, muscle growth, goal
Good.
setting, focus, discipline, sleep. Just kind of hit all of those in 4
Yeah.
1 hour sessions. Try to go pretty fast. They're still welcome to ask questions, but they tend to be a little less chatty than the girls.
Sure.
So I just kind of go through it, with PowerPoints. We go on
Yeah.
Chronometer and add up their calories.
Oh,
One of the
cool.
boys said, "Oh, that's why I'm hungry all the time."
Yeah.
Because he just wasn't, it's hard to eat enough when you're a teenage boy.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
for
yeah.
sure. That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I love it. And then in the high school class, do you talk at all about, like, is there any mention about, just even an appreciation for women's health, or do you really keep it separate? Like it's about the boys.
Oh yeah, in the boys class, we
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how just in general for like respect for girls, they're going to be more emotional. They're really different. You might
Yeah.
feel awkward having conversations with them. You might not know quite how to approach it. So just, calm down and take your time. There's no
Yeah.
rush on anything in high school. And one thing I emphasize with the boys is
Beautiful.
girls want to be they want to be known for themselves. They don't, no matter how pretty you think they are, don't tell them that on the first time you go out for coffee.
Yeah.
You're gonna spook them probably.
Yeah.
And they just they want to they want to get to know you.
Yeah.
But I think most of them are hearing from their parents that high school relationships rarely play out. So you're just building a foundation of getting to know people
Yeah.
and seeing what you like and don't like and kind of just getting a sense of what your type is, but
Yeah.
probably not making any big moves when you're in high school.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so perfect. And it's so amazing how they need that, like you said, from somebody else so often, because I feel like, especially as another homeschooling mom, is they get everything from me. And then
Yeah.
and then watch out, don't stay up too late, especially as they get into those older teenage
Oh,
years.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So it's just a different, like, okay, you've got to also do this and do this. And I didn't watch you eat dinner, and I know you're running out the door. Did you eat anything? But
Yeah.
all of these little things, I feel like if they just have another voice sometimes, that's
Yeah.
so helpful. And there's
Right.
such a need. Right before, in February of 2022, I was asked to do, there was a mother-daughter talk. We did like a mother-daughter brunch, and we had 200 mothers and daughters show up. And honestly, we thought it would just be this small, intimate thing. We were blown away by how
So
many people came.
yeah.
Yeah, it's such a need. And again, people said, "What do you offer for boys? When can we do this again? What else?" And then everything, the world shut down. And it's been that's been like on my heart to help have wonderful resources like what you're putting out there for all of these people that just want to give this information to their kids from an additional source. And so
Right.
then they can really help them to be set up more for who they are and whose they are and how they were created. It's just
Yeah.
so important to understand all of that. And it's so great that you're doing this, Jen. I really love it. So, as a homeschooling mom with a lot on your plate, how do you juggle it all? Do you have any tips for us other entrepreneurs that are in the trenches?
Well, as you know, I'm sleeping right now, so I let them sleep in partly because we
Yeah,
can,
yeah,
and I tend to be a morning person, so I get a little bit done in the morning.
yeah,
But also, the kids are used to me teaching,
yeah,
so I've always taught online. So just been kind of doing my own thing for about an hour at a time. And part of the older kids' chores is just keeping the younger kids, taken care of while I do that. And
yeah.
frankly, she would rather do that than any kind of house cleaning. So,
It's true.
um, so that's kind of been the ongoing system for a lot of it. Is just to say, do you want to play with the baby or watch the toddler for an hour, or would you rather deep clean the toilet?
Yes.
Yes, I'll pick watching the other kids. And of course, I don't really care because I can clean the toilet while I listen to a podcast later, right? So that's probably a big part of how it works.
Yeah,
Also,
it's beautiful.
recording like my podcast episodes, I just do it in little chunks and I lock the door. I say, kids, I'm recording. Don't interrupt me because it is
Yeah.
such a pain to fix a voice memo.
Yes.
But they're all pretty short. It's like 10 minutes, right? And I upload it real quick on my phone. So I
Yeah.
guess I'd say I've kind of slowly built a bunch of systems that all together allow me to do it. And
Beautiful.
yeah, I mean, it's probably 5 to 10 hours a week that I'm teaching or I'm on, and
Yeah.
that's well within the kids' tolerance.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. So, do you have classes coming up soon for people that are able to watch this within the close time when we're launching it?
yeah, I have a boys' health section starting next Monday, the 21st, and then
Okay.
I think a girls' health section also starting in December. And I designed that for kids who are kind of between sports because a lot of kids do a
Yeah.
sport. They don't really have any spare time until November. and then they're
Yeah,
going to be doing another sport in March. So I was trying to catch that window, which a lot of families have told me is their window to do extra things. And
that's
then I have a
awesome.
classes starting second semesters. So in January, there's a bunch of different sections starting.
That's amazing. And where can people sign up or follow you for more information?
I'm on Instagram, just Bright Families, and I
Okay,
have my website, brightfamilies.com. It's pretty self evident once you get on there. How everything,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, so good. And then any last words you have for anybody that's on the fence, they think they want to sign their kid up, but they're not totally sure. What would you say to them?
You can email me and I can send you a sample, like a recording from another class. You can get a sense of the pace and kind of the
Mhm.
atmosphere and how the kids bond. It is surprising how well kids bond over Zoom.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents like it because they don't have to drive anywhere.
Yeah.
But also, I think the kids can be a little more honest and vulnerable because they're
Mm,
zooming in from the comfort of their own home.
yeah.
And I'm surprised. I've been surprised for 10 years teaching online
Mm,
how well the kids connect
mm,
and how well they share and learn from each other.
that's
So
beautiful. Oh,
yeah,
I absolutely love that. Well, thank you so much, Jen. This has been so wonderful hearing more about Bright Families. Thank you for your time.
yeah. Take care.